In the beginning of the story, it is said that a city called Chester's Mill was like a normal city at first. But then, some horrible and scary incidents started happening there, which made the whole city worse than hell. But what kind of dangerous incidents started happening there? Let's find out. So, the story begins by showing a boy named Barbie, who was burying a dead body in the jungle. Barbie was not a local resident there, and looking at the wound on Barbie's forehead, it seemed that she must have had a lot of fights with the dying man. After burying the man, Barbie starts moving out of the city in her car. But then, she meets a police officer named Sharif's car. She gets a little scared when she sees him, which distracts her from driving. But somehow, he manages to escape from the police. But then, some cows were standing in the middle of the road. To save them, Barbie suddenly turns her car, which takes her to a field full of cows. She was slightly injured by this. A few seconds later, the ground there starts shaking violently due to the earthquake, when suddenly, a thing from the sky falls down in front of Barbie. And everything calms down. Barbie sees that a cow had been cut into 2 pieces by that thing falling from the sky. She is scared and starts touching that thing. Then she finds out that it is an invisible wall, which was so sharp that many houses were cut into 2 pieces because of it. Then a boy named Joy comes there and asks her if she is okay. He is also shocked to see that invisible wall. On the other hand, Sharif and Linda get the news that the power supply of the entire town has been cut off, phone lines have been cut off, and the internet is also not working. Even all the satellite connections had stopped working. Then a plane flying over the city collides with that invisible wall and crashes. Seeing this, people were even more scared. And it is confirmed that this is not just an invisible wall, but a round-shaped dome, which has covered half of the city. On the other side, we see Phil and his assistant Dodie at a radio station, who were trying to get a signal. They were a little confused as to why the signal suddenly went off. Here Phil feels that this is a good opportunity to raise their radio ratings, so they both start correcting the signal. Meanwhile, a fire truck was coming from the other side of the dome. Seeing this, Bobby points the truck driver towards this invisible wall, stops him and saves him from crashing. After a while, some police officers come there to investigate. But it was not possible for them to understand this invisible dome. At the same time, a city councilman named Big Jim also arrives there. But he also does not understand anything about this dome. Here the police get information that all the roads leading to that city have been closed. Because a lot of accidents are happening because of that dome. A little far from this, a boy named Junior was getting intimate with a girl named Angie. Angie was a nurse by profession and was Joe's elder sister. After getting intimate, Junior tells Angie that I love you very much. But Angie tells him that she does not feel anything for him. This breaks Junior's heart and they start arguing. Here their argument increases so much that Angie slaps him and leaves from there. After this, we see the family of 3 people, in which Mother Caroline, Alice and their daughter Nori were going towards the same town. They were not aware that the dome has covered that town. On the other hand, we see an investigative reporter named Julia, who had a lot of fame in Chester Mill City. One day a woman calls her to give her a secret news. That woman tells her that she has seen 6 trucks full of propane in Chester Mill that week. And according to her, such a large quantity of fuel like propane can be part of a dangerous plan to enter the city. Julia promises to investigate that woman about this. But she is not able to pay attention to it because she is too busy with her work. At the same time, Big Jim goes to the radio station and announces the emergency. Caroline, who was coming to the city with Alice and Nori, hears this announcement. But she thinks that this is some kind of advertisement. That's why she doesn't pay attention to this announcement. And her car crashes into the dome and saves herself. Because before that, a truck coming from the other side crashes into the dome and crashes. Seeing this, she immediately brakes her car. Seeing such a big incident, Nori starts having seizures, causing her to faint. But before fainting, she says about a pink star. Now from here, Nori is taken to the hospital quickly, which was full of injured people due to the incidents in the town. While Julia and Barbie were bringing the injured people to the hospital. In this hospital, Julia's husband was also a doctor. She goes to meet him. But at that time, her husband was not in the hospital. In the hospital, Julia finds out that her husband never worked on Sundays. But he was always lying to Julia. Outside the hospital, we see Barbie and Angie together. Seeing both together, a different jealousy arises in the junior. At the same time, the borders of the town are now sealed by the soldiers. Many scientists and experts do not know the real reason for this strange and poor problem. But after a few hours, Big Jim meets the sheriff to talk about propane. Here, from what he says, we know that he already knew a little about this dome. But he was not talking openly about it. At the same time, Barbie had to stay in that town for a day. But he had no place to stay. So he decides to spend the night in his car. Then the junior comes to him and tells him to stay away from Angie. Gradually, his words turn into threats. Barbie is surprised at what his mistake is. In the meantime, Julia comes there, from which they stop fighting. The scene shifts from here and we see that some teenagers were partying in one place. Joy was also among them. Joy starts talking to a boy about the situation there. But suddenly, Joy starts having a seizure. And he starts talking about Pink Star. As Nori said earlier. Meanwhile, Joy's sister Angie is alone at home. Suddenly, the junior enters her house, kidnaps her and takes her to his father's broken shelter. Here he tells her that he knows about the dome that covered the city. Here, Angie also finds out that Big Jim is the junior's father. The junior also tells Angie that his father was always worried about his family's safety. That's why he made the shelter for the family. On the other side, Julia brings Barbie to stay at her house. Suddenly, Barbie's eyes fall on her husband's photo. And she realizes that he is the same man she killed in the morning. On the other side, Linda and Sheriff were keeping an eye on all the vehicles, so that no one would accidentally bump into this dome. Suddenly, Sheriff gets an attack and he dies there. Now from here, we see the morning incident in the flashback, where Barbie came to meet Julia's husband, who was a doctor in town. He talks to him about some payment. But the doctor refuses to give him the payment. Because of this, they have a fight. And accidentally, Barbie shoots him. Barbie knew that even though he killed him by mistake, he would be punished for it. And to avoid this, he buried his body in the jungle. In the present, Barbie wakes up in the morning and sees that the chain on his neck is missing. So she asks Julia about it. Julia tells her that she will find his chain and give it to him. But then Barbie remembers that the chain fell in the cabin where she killed her husband. There, Joy was with her friend Ben, who helped her last night during Caesar. Ben asks Joy about the Pink Star, which he said during the night tour. But Joy didn't remember anything about it. At the same time, at the radio station, Dodie, with the help of a special device, becomes successful in contacting people outside the dome. She could hear the soldiers talking to each other. But she doesn't say anything to them. There, the soldiers were also confused that what is this invisible wall? On the other hand, Big Jim is having breakfast in the restaurant. Linda comes there and tells him about Sheriff's death. From which they immediately go to the one who buried the dead bodies in the bunker, whose name was Lester. There, Angie tries her best to call someone to help in the shelter. But she is not successful. Then Joy comes there and ties her to the bed through the chain. At the same time, Big Jim brings Lester with him, who is Sheriff's friend. He is very sad and worried about Sheriff's death. When Linda is not around him, he and Big Jim talk about the import of propane last month. That all three were involved in the import of propane. And they hid this from the townspeople. It was confirmed from Sheriff's death that he would not be able to tell anyone about his involvement, which was also good news for them. The same day, Linda comes to the police station. She sees that Big Jim is looking for something in sheriff's office. When Linda asks, Jim tells her that he is looking for sheriff's papers there. But actually, he came there to find the papers related to the import of propane, which could have put him and Lester in trouble. He comes out immediately and tells Sheriff that I think those papers will be in Sheriff's house. To bring them, he immediately sends Lester to his house. Meanwhile, Julia quickly goes to 2D at the radio station, where she sees that they can listen to the conversation of the soldiers standing outside the dome through the device. After listening to them, Julia finds out that they are digging the ground and trying to get the dome out. But they are not able to succeed in this task. After this, Julia spreads the news of the dome in the whole town through the radio, which creates fear in people and people get scared. Meanwhile, Joy and Ben see the scientists working near the border. The scientists see what the effect of water on the dome is, but they did not understand much, so they could not reach any conclusion. Meanwhile, Joy sees that this dome is like a trap. He tells Ben that ordinary water can pass through this dome. On the other hand, Barbie goes to Julia's husband's doctor's cabin to find her chain. There she finds her chain. But then Junior comes there and sees her. Junior asks her, "Did you sleep with Angie?" Here Barbie thinks that maybe he has seen her looking for the chain. And that's why he couldn't let Junior go from there just like that. That's why he beats Junior very badly. Meanwhile, we see that Lester reaches Sheriff's house and starts looking for the propane import papers. After a while, he finds those papers in the drawer. That's when he burns them. When he starts going from there, his feet catch fire on the curtains of the house. Due to which the flames of fire spread throughout the house and the whole house starts burning. Seeing this, a lot of people gather quickly and try to put out the fire. But it was impossible to put out the fire without a fire truck. If they had let the house burn, the temperature inside the dome would have increased a lot, which could have killed people. That's why everyone starts putting out the fire together. Barbie leads people to put out the fire. That's when Linda hears Lester screaming from inside the house. She goes inside and pulls him out. And sends him to the doctor for treatment. Here, people do not succeed in putting out the fire even after an hour. On the contrary, the fire gets worse. Finally, Jim brings a loader and puts out the house. Then the fire calms down somewhere. After that, all the tired people gather. One of them, a policeman named Paul, gets frustrated and says that we all will never be able to get out of this dome. Because this dome is not letting the smoke out of the fire. He says that we are all going to die inside this dome. Saying this, he shoots in the air, which collides with the dome and hits another policeman. And he dies immediately. Here, Paul is arrested. When it gets dark, Joy and her friends go skating. That's when Nori comes to Joy and tells her to charge her phone. Joy takes her home because there was a generator in her house, which was in the countless houses of that town. There, Linda brings Paul to jail. There, some people were protesting outside the police station. Actually, they were opposing the police's dirty system. Jim calms them down by saying that if needed, they will be helped. After being locked up, Paul gets a heart attack, from which Linda runs in to help him. But that's when he finds out that Paul was just acting to get an attack. Taking advantage of this opportunity, Paul pushes him, locks him in the lockup and runs away from there. Here, in the bunker, Junior goes back to NG. NG had understood that if she had to get out of here, she would have to trap Junior in a false trap. That's why she shares her childhood memories with him. When they both used to go to a closed tunnel, and she says that maybe the dome's tunnel had no effect, so they can go outside. Here, NG thinks that now he is trapped in his love trap, so maybe he should leave her. But nothing like that happens. Junior makes a plan to go to that tunnel alone. When Jim comes to the police station, he sees Linda in the lockup instead of Paul. He immediately takes her out of the lockup. He finds out that Paul has a rifle and some bullets with him. Linda immediately goes to the forest in search of him. Because she knew that Paul often used to go to the forest to hunt. While Jim prepares a team to catch Paul. Caroline, who was sitting in the restaurant, was worried about Nori. because she stayed at Joy's house last night without telling her mother. While Jim asks people to join his team to search for Paul. He also asks Barbie to come with him, because he proved to be a good leader in extinguishing the fire. After this, they start going to the jungle. On the way, Barbie shows her qualities and tells them that she has also been in the military. On the other hand, Julia sees Junior going towards the tunnel. She stops him and asks him where he is going with his backpack. But Junior was in a hurry. And he was nervous too. He says that I am just going to meet my friend nearby. This increases Julia's suspicion of him even more. And she follows him and reaches the tunnel. Joy and Nori were having breakfast together at Joy's house. Joy had never been alone with a girl before, so he was feeling a little nervous, while Nori was confident and was also present in the conversation. Then Ben comes to his house with two other girls, who had to charge their phones. Ben had to use a generator to impress them, for which Joy gives Ben a little heartless permission, because the generator was very useful in that town, and he didn't think it was right to misuse it. There in the jungle, we see that the search team finds Paul. But at the same time, Paul shoots a bullet in a boy's leg. The other boy also stops there to take care of him, while Jim and Barbie run after Paul. On the other hand, Junior reaches the end of the tunnel, where he finds out that the dome has also covered the tunnel. They reach very close to the wall, due to which his torch starts burning. That's when Julia comes there and warns him. Junior gets very angry when he sees Julia, because she was following him. Due to this, Junior starts punching that invisible wall like crazy, due to which Julia stops him. Then they both sit down and start talking. Julia tells him that due to a mistake made in her past, she is stuck in this useless job of a journalist. On the other hand, Joy's house is filled with people who had come to use her generator for their own needs. A naughty boy tries to get money in return for using a generator from people, which he didn't have. But no one had the courage to speak against him. Seeing this, Nori moves forward to handle everything. But the matter gets even more heated. But before anything goes wrong, the light goes off. Nori is very happy that Joy supported her in that argument. While in the jungle, Barbie and Jim reach Paul. But Paul had taken out his rifle, due to which he was about to kill Jim. That's when Linda comes from behind and shoots him. On the other hand, Caroline goes to Joy's house and meets her daughter Nori. She tells Nori that she should be a little responsible. Hearing her scolding, Joy and Nori hold each other's hands, due to which a strange spark is created, and at the same time, they both start having seizures. They were both talking about a pink star. On the other hand, Junior goes to NG in the shelter. But this time, he had a first aid kit in his hand. NG puts a bandage on his wounds, and secretly keeps the seizure with her. There we see that Julia and Barbie return home after a tiring day. But Julia started suspecting Barbie after hearing what Junior said. And when Barbie goes to take a bath, Julia starts checking her stuff. Friends, don't forget to subscribe to our Foxplainer Hindi channel.